he's been a big influence on, I'd say, all of us here in the BMT Federation. One of the things I look most forward to during these conferences is Howard's talks and the time that we get to spend with Howard beforehand, just talking about some of the new, latest, and greatest things. So without further ado, Howard Lees.
Thanks, Rich. Good morning. 1969 was a great year, but there's only me and Scott actually remember 1969. I won't dwell on it. But one thing big happened in 1969, and that was Neil Armstrong took one step on the moon. Small step for man, giant step for mankind. And the theme of the conference so far has been leadership and what good leaders do. And a lot of the conversations in the bar have been people wondering why their leader isn't as good as the ones that I've described. But there's absolutely no reason why you can't become those great leaders. So people can be distracted and almost consumed by things that are happening above them in the organization. Nelson Mandela could have been consumed about all of the injustices that had happened to him, but he wasn't. He focused on what he could do, and so almost to put some closure to what I said, those things I said yesterday. This being consumed with the injustices coming down from above is just going to make you stressed. Like stick an umbrella up and see what you can do. See what you can do. For the people that work for you. There's much more rewarding things to be gained by doing that. And the other thing about the Neil Armstrong, I mean, I'm not even American, and I feel good about that. I remember it, and I feel good about it. But that was also a really good example of great leadership, because the president, sometime before, said, "Hey, we need to stick somebody on the moon." Yeah, and that was enough to engage all of the people in, was it called NASA then? I can't remember. But that was enough to engage everybody, and everybody had a goal, and when it was achieved, everybody celebrated. And the great leaders that I've talked about, and I talk about in the book, those guys managed to salt down those messages to make them so simple that everybody understands what they are, and everybody understands what they're supposed to do. Perhaps if an American president were to say, we're going to eradicate cancer by the year 2030, yeah, then that might be a clarion call for a whole bunch of people to go, all right, that's what he wants us to do, And then maybe when you get to 2030, you'll be there, of course, me and Scott will be well gone by then, yeah. When you get there, then you'll be able to celebrate in the same way. So this leadership thing, and I mean you, maybe not the people in your corporations, this leadership thing is about making some statement, hey guys, why don't we do this, yeah? And engaging everybody, and then you've got something to work towards. Because an awful lot of the organizations that I've seen, yeah, don't do this. They don't create the conditions for success in the same way that President Kennedy did, in the same way that Neil Armstrong did, And all those steps that occurred between the president saying, let's go to the moon, and Neil Armstrong stepping on the moon, they were what I would call the steps before step one, yeah? And that's what this talk's about. So we're talking about creating the conditions for success, and in a lot of organizations, people just demand success, and those two things are completely different. So without engagement, you really don't have anything at all. So in this, okay, my goal is I want this, yeah? And I've asked for it many times and never received it, so the asking for it's not working. Maybe I should think of something else. Maybe I need to create some engagement first, and then develop some relationships, and then perhaps I can develop the relationship so well that when I ask for what I want, I'm going to get it, yeah? That being much more scientific. And in behavior, they call that shaping. So instead of trying to jump over a 2-yard, meter, foot, 6, whatever, instead of trying to jump over something this high, jump over something this high and then work your way up, yeah? This is just common sense, isn't it? This is simplicity. Why can't you get engagement? Well, there are a few things out there. There are a few reasons why it's difficult to get engagement. One is this too busy thing. Yeah, there's somehow culturally, people have been persuaded that running around like a lunatic is is the way to succeed in the business, and it's not. Those great leaders that I worked for, none of them did. They were always calm. They were always there when I needed them. Their desk was always clear. They always returned my phone calls. They always returned my emails. Yeah, and by doing that, I was filled with confidence to do the things that I wanted to do. And so if you're not doing that, then you need to just change tomorrow. Okay. See, the thing is that you're a victim of the environment that you work in. Yeah? And if you're the leader, you're the creator of the environment for everybody else. So that just kind of supports stop worrying about the noise, the injustices from above, and see what you can do down below. Because it doesn't take that much effort to actually get some changes going. And then once you get some changes going, it does snowball quite quickly. I know John's done work in various companies here in safety, and the lagging safety measures have improved. So that there were injuries where there were once injuries, there are no longer injuries or less injuries or whatever. So once you derive some reinforcement that what you're doing is the right thing to do, then it will snowball, and even the biggest cynics will actually join in quite quickly. This is how things go wrong. Yeah, this is how things go wrong. And the example I used yesterday was you're in the airplane. There's lots of turbulence. The seatbelt signs on, and slowly over time you're dying for a pee. And then one person gets up and uses the lavatory, and the cabin crew see that person and don't want to clear up the mess. So just let it ride. So then you use the lavatory, and then everybody uses the lavatory. And now when the seatbelt sign's on, everybody's walking around the cabin. Yeah, that's the site equivalent to that, or the construction site equivalent of that is the boss goes out, 500 people are wearing a helmet, 3 people aren't. Next time he goes out, it's 5 people aren't wearing a helmet. The time after it's 10, it's 20. It's this mutually beneficial amnesia. When I say mutually beneficial, I mean right now. Right now, it's beneficial to me to ignore this thing, yeah, this thing that's happening. And there are plenty of places out there where every time you go out on site, everybody's doing the right thing, wearing the right gear, But it just takes a few little lapses, or some artless way of dealing with the lapse when you see it, So if the way to get somebody not to wear a hard helmet in the future is to go up to them and shout at them, yeah. Because then you set up a cycle of revenge. So now they're going to do some, now there's going to be some sabotage at some point in the future. And now you go down some horrible road, yeah? So there are artful ways of getting what you want. And it's best to focus on those. Some of the clients I go to say, okay, I think you should focus on email and meetings. And they go, what? What for? Well, where all the leaders are in headquarters, all of the behaviors are verbal behaviors. I mean, sure, people are walking around and stuff, but all of the key behaviors are verbal behaviors. So this is the place to go. And we've had a look at some data, and a lot of your people spend nearly 50% of their time in meetings. So meetings is a place where all of the verbal behaviors are occurring. So that's the place where you can get cycles of, abuse, I'm going to say in a minute, but that's where you can turn this kind of stuff to this kind of stuff, yeah? So how many of you say, yeah, went to a meeting this morning, it was great. Started on time, finished on time, we all closed out the actions, there was some really good coaching by the boss, we all walked out there punching the air saying, yeah, that was fantastic. Looking at your faces, not that often. But again, it's within your control. You can change the environment in a meeting by getting a digital recorder, switching it on and sticking it in you'd be amazed how different, how much you can change behaviors just by changing the environment by putting a physical thing like a digital recorder in. And if you just put it in the middle of the table and don't say anything, you'll discover that the bullies, the bad guys, will be the very people who object to it. Yeah, so then you can say, I see we've identified the bullies. I'll just make a name, can you give me a name, please, But verbal behaviors in leadership, that's where the behavior is. Yeah? So people are maybe too consumed with, I went out on the field and saw 7 things wrong. Well, those 7 things didn't get wrong today. Yeah? Those 7 things went wrong 3 months ago when the leadership decided that that's what the site culture is going to be. Yeah? Sadly, I'm going to talk about it, but it's very sad. We do come across cycles of abuse. So this person's been punishing this person, and instead of this person kind of dealing with it and being strong and doing the right thing down below, they just pass it on down. So we gave a report to a fairly large English organization who I'm not going to name, and we said to them, there are 2 things screaming loud and clear from your people. One is you can't do meetings, yeah? And the second thing is you respond badly when things go wrong, yeah? And almost within the first 5 minutes of a discussion with nearly everybody we talked to, those 2 things came up. So we would suggest that you deal with that straight away. And this director said, no, it's not about meetings and it's not about responses. It's about those guys doing their job properly that they're getting paid for. Bye. I'm going now. I don't need to work for you, and now I'm going to find somebody really good who we can, do some cool stuff with. But this is quite common, and you can observe it. You can have a look at people and listen to the interactions between people, and you can say to yourself, "There's something going on between, Fred and Bill. There's something strange going on there. Yeah, there's something odd. There's a sign that perhaps I can go and explore and see if I can find out what's gone on there." But in companies where people have been there for a long time, people have long memories. People who've been punished have long memories. Yeah, they don't forget the punishment. It's brilliant when you encounter somebody that says, I can't believe what a sinner I've been. I'm thinking of all the things that I used to do. I used to ring people up when I knew they were in meetings. I used to walk into their meetings and disturb them and drag them out. I used to nag them. I used to ask them to do something by Thursday and ask them whether they'd done it on Wednesday. It wasn't even that, It's fantastic when you encounter people who have these, and they do frequently, who have these moments where they go, oh no, I can't believe it. There's a guy who runs a large organization in Scotland, and one of his friends gave in one of my books called Ideas for Wimps. Yeah, so I know people are put off by the title because you're kind of admitting you're a wimp by buying it. But he said to this guy, this is a great book, and the guy said, well, I could probably get you to have a chat with the author. So I went to see him, had half an hour, had a coffee with him, and he said to me, you wrote a book about me? And I said, no, I wrote a book about everybody, Why would you think that this is just you? This is what nature does to us. Nature's not very good now. Yeah, I mean, we're tuned to kind of food and responding aggressively and all that kind of stuff. As humans, we're not necessarily tuned to long-term planning and making sure that everything's been prepared properly and nurturing relationships and making observations. We're not naturally tuned to that. Nature does us no favors at all when it comes to effectively leading organizations or delivering projects. And when people say, yeah, I've made a big mistake here, and if they will apologize, it's fantastic. I've said to a few people around here, how do you get the boss to get people to believe that he's changed? And I said, well, if they'll say, hey everybody, I'm really, really sorry. Here's a list of things that you guys have said that drive you crazy, yeah? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try really hard to stop doing this. I mean, I recognize that I'm going to fail every now and again, but here's the first one. I'm not going to copy loads of people into emails, yeah? If you ring me, I'm going to call you back within 24 hours, yeah? And I'm going to get my PA to publish my data this week, next week, the week after, because that's the only way I'll know whether I'm getting better. If you can get the chief exec or the director or the VP to do that, then everybody goes, wow, It's not impossible if the person at the top apologizes. It's not impossible to have really good things downstream. Because when good things start to happen, then the person who apologized then goes, all right, it's working. Once he starts receiving some reinforcement for his different behavior, then his different behavior will be maintained over time. So too many people just kind of see the problem and give up straight away. It's called learned helplessness. it's good to ask, are we talking about the same thing here? Yeah, it's good you're in a meeting and are we talking about the same thing here? What I was talking about was creating a safe place for people to work. And what you seem to be talking about is coming up with things we can police, easy things we can police. Yeah, you talked about people wearing PPE and people holding the handrail walking downstairs and stuff you can see, yeah? You're talking about that. And my kind of needs are a slightly higher level than that. I want to create a safe place for people to work, which means that I need to respect the people who are out there doing the work, and they're the very people who are making me successful. I don't make them successful, they make me successful. So when we talked about those great leaders, what they were in effect doing is actively caring, and Scott's going to talk about that. Actively caring is a phrase most people can get their heads around. And if you feel that somebody is treating you with respect, you will respond accordingly. And if you don't feel somebody's treating you with respect, you will respond accordingly, yeah? So I've said this many times, CEOs always get what they deserve, yeah? The rest of us, sometimes get what we deserve and sometimes we don't. But the only person that always does is the person at the top. And they need to think more about that, and somehow getting that message to them can be done. Most of them are very clever, most of them are not stupid, and most of them, if somebody can come along and say, hey, look how much more money we made doing this, you'll get their attention in no time at all. Yeah? I'm not saying all leaders are like that. Lots of them are. So, having talked about the steps before step one in this talk, what are the first steps? I would suggest the first steps are for you in your place of work to just start gathering some data, to ask yourself those questions when you're in the meeting. What's he really saying when he says that? That felt a little bit aggressive. Maybe I should ask a clarifying question and find out what's behind that, yeah? Perhaps before you go into meetings, you spend 10 minutes thinking, okay, I'm going into this meeting with Bill and Fred and Joe. What do I think Bill's going to say? What do I think Fred's going to say? What do I think Joe's going to say? Okay, so what would be a good retort to that? What would be how could I say something different to what I've always said before that would maybe shift him one step along the continuum, shift him one step along, getting a better response out of him? Because if you've been in an organization for a while, most of the responses are conditioned. You're all responding in a very similar way in your meetings all the time. Nobody's taking it somewhere better. It's just happening, yeah? But you could do that. You don't have to be the boss to change the environment. Behavior is driven by the local environment, and the environment is made up of the people in the environment and the room. So you've got just as much chance of changing stuff as anybody else in there, yeah? You're a person, whoever's dominating it is a person. You can have an impact on that. I would suggest spending some time thinking about how you could have an impact of that. Might be a step before step one. And you can do that when you're driving to work in the car in the morning. And if you forget to do that, you could stick something on the passenger seat to remind you to think about what you're going to say when you get into this meeting with Bill, Joe, and Fred, and what could you say that's different. And the other thing about the what could you say that's different is you can then say to yourself, so you don't have to be embarrassed about being wrong. You can say to yourself, how do I think they're going to respond to that? And then you can score yourself as to how good you get in at having an understanding of how Bill, Fred, and Joe are going to respond to what it was you said that was slightly different to what you ever said in the past. It's exciting. I would suggest going straight from step 1 to step 10 is a bad idea. I would suggest writing step 10 and step 1 is a good idea, but I would suggest before you act, you take some time and figure out what step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9 might be. And then I would suggest you say to yourself, okay, what am I prepared to say? Yeah? Am I prepared to say, you're an idiot? No. Am I prepared to say, good morning? Yes. Okay, so what have we got between you're an idiot and good morning? That's something I could say that would move this thing along. Yeah? That would actually make a change. So that if I deliver a number 3, response, then, and if it went okay, maybe tomorrow I could deliver the number 4 response. I think everybody in this room tomorrow or next week when you get back to work could start thinking about steps before step one. And I think by the end of next week or the week after, you could have very easily done something different. You just have to do it, that's all. Thank you very much.